Hello and welcome to the STCfit podcast. I'll be your host today. My name's Nat Jurek, and with me I'll be joined by Ben Scott and Jason Galea. STCfit are a group of coaches who provide premium coaching and education services to high-achieving women who want to ditch the frustration and achieve the results they want when they want. On the podcast, we'll be discussing all things related to our 5-step method to experiencing total clarity in knowing how to achieve your goals, present and future. The podcast is brought to you by STCfit for all your online and personal training needs. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a share and tag at Nat Jurek STCfit, at Ben Scott STC, and at Jason Galea _STC. Hope you enjoy the show. Hi, we're on.
We're live. What's up?
If anyone senses any tension, it's because Ben won't let me sit in that chair.
It's my chair now.
It's mine.
It's my chair. I know you're the host, but it's still my chair.
It's because I can see the dog out the window and it's a problem.
So if Nat disappears for 15 minutes and you feel like I'm holding up the episode,
it's because he is.
That's all. Shadow is doing something
you've had more coffee than what I
way
have.
more exciting than me talking outside.
Yes, that would be right.
I feel like that's what we should do for the YouTube episodes.
What, just have the dog
Just
with
put
us?
Shadow in them.
Or Mav. Shadow, Mav, Indy, Benji will just rotate.
I feel like Mav's too much chaos. Sorry, Jason, but...
Go look at Shadow. Look at Shadow now. Oh, he is. I'm already distracted. So Ben and I are back, and it's probably appropriate that we're doing this after comp. We haven't unpacked comp on here.
Oh yeah,
So we
we
had
should
that
talk about that.
a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're already tired again.
Because we're already in prep again.
I feel like that happened this morning. It was just the mood just ticked. Yeah.
We're doing this again.
Yeah.
Jason, Michael, Dan, you guys are all
Help.
up. So do you want to give everyone a rundown on how the day went for you and I guess your result and how you sort of thought that played out?
Yeah, so prep was up and down with a bit of a shoulder thing. So I had no idea what to really expect on the day. The guys at Strength HQ, they did a really good job given the circumstances. So they had to run basically 2 meets in the same day. So we had most of the girls in the morning and then mostly guys in the afternoon.
And you had a 20-hour day.
So yeah, I think what time we get there? 8.
Yeah.
And walked out of there at 6:30. I think I started lifting at 2. So we'd already been there 6 hours. So that was interesting. The day itself went really well. Squatted 200, which was pretty much the goal. PB by bench by 10 kilos, 145. And then just a 5 kilo PB on my deadlift because I missed my third, which would have been 175, which I think will be there for nationals with less of a crazy day. So yeah, I think nationals looks good. Put wraps on for the first time last night.
That was it.
My God, my friends. So I'm really excited about squats now. I'm just hoping my shoulder holds up. But yeah, all in all, the day was great. We had 3 people debut. We had 3 people put in real, or 4 people put in real national qualifying sort of totals, even though there's no qualifier, that are all going to move on. So yeah, I think the day was good. It was obviously strange to compete without a crowd.
Yeah, it was real weird.
Coming from GPC as well, there's usually
a rowdy
100 lifters, let alone crowd. So that was an interesting experience, but it was still really fun. I think the smaller group, obviously you went there for the afternoon. There was probably a bit more energy in the afternoon and in the morning. Much louder, obviously.
It was a bigger group, yeah?
Yes, we had 5 extra lifters, but we had a bunch of rowdy blokes as well.
Yeah.
Versus girls that were sort of
timid
a bit
and
newer.
Just sitting there whispering. I'm fuck.
Yeah. I turned to Jace at one stage. I was like, why the fuck are we whispering
Literally,
at a powerlifting?
yeah.
This is so strange.
So weird.
But yeah, it was good. It was good to see everyone's work. We obviously had, I can't remember how many weeks out it was, maybe 6. We had the 3-week lockdown.
Yeah, it was.
So most people had access to equipment, but it still wasn't ideal. Because of COVID, we didn't really know what was going on with the comp itself until the Tuesday before. So there was a lot of unknown and stuff for the guys going in. So the way we showed up, I think everyone hit at least 1 or 2 PB lifts.
Yeah.
Which resulted in PB totals as well across the board. So to see that was really cool. And then like for me, it's always the culture element too. Like how do we show up? How do we interact with the officials, with the other lifters? And as always, everyone was awesome, supporting everyone else. Not like taking over anything, which is can happen when there's so many of us.
Group, yeah.
So yeah, I was really, really pleased with how the day rolled out from an overall standpoint. And it was fun to lift with you guys. So yeah.
If only we were in the actual same room at the same time.
It was a shame that everyone went home when I actually lifted, but
I know, I was sitting at lunch and I was like, I want to watch Ben.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck.
Yeah. Look, I can't complain too much. Like I was able to get Amy in. Obviously, Dad was competing. Jace was there, so it was like most of my inner circle were there that would have come to watch anyway. Yeah. Probably except you and the other lifters. So
yeah, and we got to do it at nationals anyway.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
What about yourself? How'd you find the experience?
Yeah, I think for me on paper, it looked good. Like I PB'd a couple of lifts. But it's probably because it's my third comp now, I guess, like the initial just like gains that you get from just being a newbie sort of like started to wear off. So it was actually a really cool experience for me to see where there's room to improve and like mature as a lifter. So like on paper, 2 PBs and PB totals. So like I was happy with that as a result. But I think for me, it was more so like the psychological aspect. Like I sort of burnt out towards the end of the day. And it wasn't even a long day for me. So that was weird. Like normally they're longer for us. So it was just interesting to see like what could change in prep. And like, obviously I was training with you in the garage, and now I've moved to like training in a gym just to be able to like focus more. And just, I think it's good to be able to see like just the small intricate details that will make an influence that like don't really influence you at the start because you're new and everything just works. Yeah. So I think that'd be cool to watch like play out and progress over the next 10 weeks as well.
How do you feel about the deadlift gap? Like obviously you said you sort of faded later in the day. Do you feel like going into nationals like confident knowing that you've got that huge deadlift in the bank, you just wasn't there on the day? Like, or are you just like, oh fuck, what if it never comes on the day? And
no, I know that it sort of happened with my bench as well. So I can kind of see a bit of a pattern where it's like something didn't feel right and I almost tapped out in my head first before the actual thing happened. Like I said to you, my last warm up for my deadlifts, I was like, that felt really heavy. And it's like from that point on, it wasn't so much like a physical thing. It was like a mental thing. Which then translates to, I didn't have that practice in prep of being able to like zone in because I was always with you and I get distracted and talk to everyone and it's just like talk, go do your lift.
Play with Indy.
Literally, yeah. So I didn't really have the opportunity to like practice when something didn't go right. Like how do I mentally like navigate that and like what does that look like? So I know it'll be there. I've done it before and there's probably a few other things that I can like dot my I's and cross my T's off in terms of preparation. So like I know it'll be there. Yeah. Which is exciting.
It's really interesting. Like you made the point of like, it's your third meet. We're out of that sort of newbie gain stage. They have been pretty condensed. Like when was your first time competing? A year?
First one was the start of 2020.
Yeah. So a year,
18 months. Yeah. It's like a comp every 6 months.
Yeah. So I've done 3 sanctioned meets over
a lot of time.
4 years.
Yeah.
But it was just the way that the comps were structured. But I think it's interesting the prep that we had outside the gym was so different probably to what you've had in the past. Taking on a new role with STCfit, hours going up, lockdown, trying to like find sessions, like you had to stay home because someone in your house was in isolation. Like it's interesting being, if it was 18 months ago, like you said, you would have still made heaps of progress in that.
Yeah.
But when you start to, and we're going to talk about, obviously today's topic is mindset, but like just how you can navigate those things.
Yeah, I think that's a really like interesting thing to unpack, and obviously it's a really good segue into what we're talking about, because for me personally, probably the prep that we had before this one was 1,000 times harder, but I was able to like perform way better and I was way happier with my results. So even looking at external circumstances, it's like, yeah, you can of course like sort of draw some conclusions, and it's like this contributed and that contributed, and you know, I was out of time here and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. But I guess like part of what we're going to talk about today is your ability to like not do that and like take ownership for what you actually can control, because it's really easy to sit back, especially in like the lead up that we've had, where there was a lot of things like changing and going wrong, and you know, we restructured STCfit and work hours and everything sort of changed, but it's like, okay, given the circumstances, like what could you still have done, which I think is a really valuable way to approach things, not just for competing, but anyone in the gym working towards like a result.
Yeah, and I think that'll be the interesting part of today is like, we talked about it in the lead up as well, like powerlifting is a sport. It's not going to the gym anymore.
Yeah.
So like there's this sliding scale of like acceptable behavior.
Yeah.
And I actually think for myself, looking back, it was like I let myself go into someone who just lifts weights.
Yeah.
Mode because I didn't compete for 18 months, and it didn't usually like, it's like, okay, 12 weeks out, turn the dial up. That didn't happen. It was like I just kept training.
Yeah.
So I wasn't doing the extra work outside of the gym that I needed to. I wasn't doing the mental sort of stuff and the health stuff that I needed to outside of the gym, because I was like, I've got away with not doing it for a year because I'm just training in like mid-range reps and nothing's like crazy. Like, whereas coming into comp prep, it's like things need to be, I's need to be dotted, T's need to be crossed, because if you don't, what I learned, shit breaks.
Yeah. Or even with an interruption like lockdown halfway through, like for me personally, it was like, okay, it's prep mode, we're on, and then something comes along that sort of like, you just indecisive, like you don't know whether or not this is going to happen. So then without even being consciously aware of it, you're just kind of like, well, the foot kind of goes on the brake a little bit, because you're like, is this happening? Is this not? Whereas I know like personally in previous preps, like it's just been I don't really care what's happening outside. Like I still do everything that I need to. So even just being unconsciously aware of like taking the foot off the gas and being a little bit like, what's the word? Like kind of like I've lost the word now. Unintentional with like what you're doing, rather than just going into everything with purpose, can be really easy to do when you've sort of got those interruptions.
Yeah, you started just like, you look in the tick boxes and go through the motions, not maximize things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like psychologically, like that's going to influence the way you're approaching things and obviously like dictate your result.
Yeah.
So like leading into today's episode, which is obviously mindset and not specifically like athletes, if you're just someone who's in the gym training, wants a strength, physique, fat loss, body comp, like performance result, whatever it is, this would be really valuable for you as well. You don't necessarily have to be in that athlete like frame of mind. In terms of like common obstacles, where do you start? Like what are the biggest problems that we see?
Yeah, so we talk about a lot, and you guys have probably heard it before, but the concept of the growth and ownership mindset.
Yeah. So
what, in a sentence, what that means is you're trying to overcome the I can't and yeah, but. So if you can take I can't and yeah, but out of your dialogue, and not necessarily not allow yourself ever to think it, but allow yourself to recognize when you do and shift it, then you're in a way better position regardless of the goal outcome.
Yeah.
So like we'll talk about goals and stuff as well, but the part of goal setting, obviously we talk about like connecting it to values and that kind of stuff. The level at which you need to play at is dependent on the outcomes that you want.
Yeah.
So when it comes to I can't, it's like, okay, switch back into what we call growth mindset, because that's fixed. It's like, I'm in this position and I can't move from here, to a growth mindset where it's like, nothing in my life is fixed and I have a choice to influence all of it. So it's how do I move into that choice? And then from, like Nat said, whether you're a gym goer, what it's required of you to get the outcome that you want, or if you're a national level powerlifter, what's required of you to get the best result. And understanding what that means, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, like, I think it's important to highlight that we're not looking at this as in, like, just get shit done and, like, that hustle grind culture and, like, do what you said and blah, blah, blah. It's, like, in relation to what's important to you and, like, what you're working towards, and that won't look the same for everyone. But in terms of, like, recognizing that language, like, I think if you don't do it already, that's the first step, because you're just on autopilot, and, like, that's a lot of people's initial response to anything. And it's almost like a little bit of a game or like a trick, because it'll sound rational and like a logical response in your head, like I can't afford it, or I don't have time for that, or like these are all things that actually might be true in theory, but I guess it's like your ability to recognize what power you have over that, and like your responsibility in being able to change that, which just gets missed.
Yeah, it's the fucking Instagram meme cliche. It's like, replace I don't have time or whatever other excuse with that's not a priority to me. It's like, if I do a check-in with a client, for example, so someone I had during the week had their birthday last weekend, and they were like, oh, I fucking overate way too much on my birthday. And I was like, how do you feel about that? It's like, do you value this week's check-in more than that day?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And I was like, will you in 4 weeks? No. Cool. So you enjoyed your birthday. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Whereas, say in our situation, if we went and got fucked up next weekend, it's like, how did that affect your training this week? How did that affect the training the next week and the next week? So in 4 weeks' time, when you look back, will that night be worth it? It's like, no.
I had the exact same conversation with a client this morning. She was like, having a really stressful day at work, and like I haven't calorie banked this week, and like I almost want to just fuck it this weekend. And I was like, will you care about it in 4 weeks? Like,
yeah.
She's doing the lift off as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, will you be happy with that decision? Will you not be happy with that decision? Like, we're not here to tell you yes or no, but like just being able to identify that within yourself. And we'll talk about values, but I guess that's like what it all comes down to.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that's what growth mindset is.
Yeah.
It's like, I have the ultimate choice here to make something different. Nothing is fixed. And if you get yourself into that point, then you can make a decision based on how you really feel. And you won't have this back and forth struggle of like, it's like, oh, I know I need to do my steps and I feel anxious about it, but I'm not doing it. And you spend all day anxious about doing the steps. It would have been fucking easy to just do it.
Yeah.
It's like that whole cycle, getting rid of that is being able to go, this is the current situation. I have the ability to change it. Is it important enough for me to change? Yes or no? And then after that, it's like you can make the choice that works for you.
Yeah, a concept that's like come up with a lot of people recently that I've noticed is this like feeling of being stuck, which I think it comes exactly down to this, where when you realize that you have full control over your decisions and your choices and your circumstances, that you won't feel stuck, because you know that you have, like, none of that is fixed. Like, you're not just like pigeonholed into whatever scenario you're in. Like, lockdown's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
It's like you could sit there and say that you can't train, you can't get a result, you can't follow your nutrition, your routine's out the window, your lifestyle has changed, or recognize that you have the chance to change that within your environment and your circumstances, and you're no longer stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the lockdown one is huge in both of these. So like growth is the I can't. So if we can get rid of I can't, then we're good. Next step is moving on to the ownership mindset, which is but. Which is usually followed by some external influence that we are able to pass blame on, usually, for creating the circumstance that we've found ourselves in.
Yeah.
So both of these are obviously ego things. They come in to protect us, or perceptually protect us from something. So when you don't want to be in a growth mindset, it's usually to protect yourself from feeling, maybe if you try and you're like, well, I can't do that, is much easier than trying it and fucking it up.
Yeah, 100%.
So then we go into the ownership thing. It's like, well, I don't want to look like a fuck up, So I'm going to blame lockdown. I'm going to blame work hours. I'm going to blame whatever.
Yeah.
Which everyone does. And that's, I think, an important thing to recognize. Applying this stuff isn't all of a sudden gonna mean you never think those thoughts.
Yeah, it'll still happen. If only. How many times am I like, oh fuck, Ben, I did it again?
The difference is you recognize them.
Yeah.
And then like it's when you first do it, it's fucking terrifying. But it's also probably one of the most empowering things that you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to one of the girls who are in Be Bulletproof, and they're doing the growth and ownership for module 1, and I asked her how she was going last night, and she was just like, I've got some work to do. I was like, yes, so like that's exactly the way, like it's not like I'm a shit person and I can't do this and I've got all these problems and I need to change the way I do everything. It's just like, fuck, like, yeah, I could change the way I'm approaching things and it could be a lot better. Yeah. And that in itself is approaching things with a growth and an ownership mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the examples with the growth one is like, I can't deadlift in like the main room in the gym. It's like, well, okay, so yes, you had that thought. Now what are you doing? Like you've put yourself in a fixed position where you can't do something. So you've limited your growth. You limited your ability to gain that level of confidence, and that only is going to come from exposure and doing. Then you go, okay, I recognize that. What am I trying to protect myself from? I don't want to look like a fucking idiot. Or I don't want like some douchebag to come and tell me how to set up my deadlift or whatever. So cool, I've acknowledged that. How else could I think about this? If someone's watching me train, they've got more problems than me.
Yeah.
Like most people are in there looking at... Yeah. Most people are in there. If I'm in a gym that's got mirrors because I don't in my garage, I'm too busy looking at myself and everything else. So it's like, that's their own problem. I'm going to go do my thing to better myself so I am confident. The one that comes up all the time is like filming your lifts.
Yeah.
It's the same concept. So giving yourself the power to do that. And then, yeah, like onto the ownership stuff. The ownership one, I find everyone has one that they're good at, one that they're not good at usually. Yeah. And it's about balancing them. The ownership one, particularly when I was younger, is probably the one I found more challenging. It was like, I can just pass the buck over there. I was always willing to try shit, but if it didn't work, it was something else. Yeah. There was a reason for it. Rather than just like, I fucked that up.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Yeah. Like, for example, Nat and I just had the conversation about the hectic prep we had, and it would be easy to get on social media and list all the reasons why we'd had imperfect preps, and that's why we did or didn't do what we did on the platform. But at the end of the day, we still had choice. It's like, I still watched Netflix the whole time through. Yeah. Like I still sat down for an hour, 2 hours a night with Amy to watch TV. So it's like, I could have got my steps. Yeah. I could have watched the TV while I was doing my rehab, but I didn't. It's got nothing to do with the work situation. That was a choice that I made that wasn't in alignment with what I was trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think like even for me personally, and probably for a lot of people, like the initial reaction is always going to be like blame or deflect, because we want to protect ourselves. Like we don't want to feel like a shit person, or we don't want to feel like we've done something wrong. We want to be like fundamentally right all of the time. So you're going to do something to push or deflect that ownership off on you. But I think if you can come back to that, or at least recognize that, and then a day later or when you've got some time, sit with that and unpack that and see where you could take ownership for that. Because I know like me personally, that'll always be like the initial response, and I'll almost need a day to digest what's happened. It happened with you guys. Like you guys asked like, oh, you know, what could have been different? And I was like, oh, this happened, that happened, that happened. And then I sat down on Monday morning and I was like, well, I did this, I did that, I did. And then I was like, okay, so whose fucking fault was it? It was mine. Like it wasn't anything else. It wasn't the circumstances. So I think being able to recognize when you do that and then come back and revisit that is going to make the biggest difference in terms of how you approach things the next time around. Because like you said, it'll always happen. It's like up to you whether or not you choose to look at that.
Yeah. It just gives you so much fucking power.
Oh, 100%.
Like if you can do that and identify that and go, I actually have the ultimate control in that outcome.
Once you get past like the fucking pain.
The ego,
the ego death.
Ego death, that's what you call them. Yeah. Like definitely once you get past that, then it's like, well, if I can choose to be better and I can choose my own outcomes with my choices, like we call the program Be Bulletproof and the method Be Bulletproof for a reason. It's like you are bulletproof at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you almost feel like shit when you're not doing that.
Yeah.
And like if you can't recognize it, you're like, why do I feel off? This will always happen with Amy. I'm like, what's wrong? And then we just find a instance where like I'm not taking responsibility. I'm like, oh, like that's it.
Yeah.
So it almost feels weird once you're in that pattern of being able to do that for yourself, where blaming and deflecting and choosing to not take responsibility feels wrong.
Yeah.
It feels weird. And like you don't want to sit like that in that place and be that person, which is a cool transition to be able to make.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, obviously we preface this all inside training, but I think a really good one that it covers both of these in relationships is like, what's the outcome of this conversation that you're looking for? Or what's the outcome in this situation that you're looking for?
Do you want to be right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to be right or do you want a solution?
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to be right because that protects you and you can deflect it onto somebody else. Like, no, you're wrong. You're an idiot. Versus, I've played a role in this as well. I can improve here. And if the other person comes to the table with the same attitudes, like all of a sudden we have the problem solved. And usually if one person does, the other person will bring their walls down as well.
Yeah.
And that plays out in like, when I say relationships, I don't just mean like significant others. Like everywhere in your life, if you can be that person, you're always going to have better interactions with everybody.
Yeah, what I find interesting with this, all of this mindset stuff and even like the values and the goals, is that we apply it to like relationships and we apply it to like career or your financial goals or like every other compartment of our lives. But people fail to look at it when it comes to like training, nutrition, performance-based goals. And it just doesn't make sense because it's like it works everywhere else. So why don't we adopt the same approach and like use it with these systems as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the just step-by-step method, because we have one for like growth and ownership, the stop, ask. Can you just list what they are?
Yeah. So for growth, you've got, so identify the fixed mindset. So identify what you're saying that is fixed. So the I can't element. Then ask yourself why you're doing that. What are you protecting yourself from? Really, and this is where it becomes like, how deep do you want to go?
Yeah.
And some people will just want enough to get past the issue that's at hand. Some people will want to go down a wormhole and unpack fucking childhood trauma stuff to identify what's going on.
At Amy Beth,
So, and like, we're personal trainers and Amy takes care of that shit. So like, our goal is to get an outcome. So if you can do enough to get a result, that's great. If it's repeating, you probably want to look at it a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Would be how I would respond to it. So for example, like not wanting to deadlift, I can't deadlift in the main room. Why? Well, I'll be embarrassed if I look stupid, I'll look incompetent, blah, blah, blah. You might stop there, or you might go, why does looking incompetent a problem?
Yeah.
What's triggering me? What's setting me off there? Because it might come up in other areas as well, whether it's training or elsewhere in life. That's the choice for you. How many times you ask that question.
How ready are you?
Yeah, because like you can keep asking that same question all the way down.
Yeah.
Then, so that's ask, and then flip to growth. How else can you frame that situation with what language that will allow you to get the outcome that you want? Because if I'm thinking of Good Life Point Cook. If you're trying to deadlift in the women's gym there,
you can't.
You're doing it off blocks with like 40 kilos or some shit. It's like you're limiting your ability to get your outcome because of your mindset. So how do I flip it to go and get my outcome?
Yeah.
Which is the context of everything that we do, is being able to get tangible results from shit. So it's all well and good to like hold hands and talk about mindset, but it's like, where's the tangible outcome?
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from. Now you can go into the big girl gym, put the 25s on and pull from the floor and actually make real progress with whatever goal you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
The ownership one is very similar. So it's identify it, Where is your deflective mindset? Ask yourself what you're protecting yourself from. Again, how many layers do you want to peel that onion back for that one?
Yeah.
And then finally, how do you flip that to take ownership and give yourself the power back to go make a better choice?
Yeah, and like you can honestly like just take a 24-hour day. Like there'll be so many examples where you'll be able to like pull stuff out and like you'll drive yourself crazy that you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
So it's probably just like a good place to start with the places that you're having a lot of resistance with. So if you're struggling to be compliant with your nutrition or something's really holding you back from getting a result, then start there, because otherwise, like honestly, you send yourself into a spiral.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
lots of ego deaths, as you call them.
When we did BCP last round, the girls were just like, fuck, like I didn't see this. It's almost like once you see it, you can't unsee it as well. So yeah,
and now you've heard the podcast, so you're done.
Yeah. So you have to go down this rabbit hole. Sorry, not sorry.
So I think once you've got that in place, you've got the ability at least to reflect and identify what's going on. Like we said, we haven't conquered it yet. If we do clock it, we'll let you know. We still have these thoughts, but I know at least personally I'm way better at dealing with them than I was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and you're just in a better position to like combat like any external experience that could potentially get in your way. Like the little things that were maybe a problem once upon a time, in 6 months' time, they won't be a problem. And then maybe bigger things will start to show up and then you'll be able to move through those. So it's just like an ever-evolving process.
Yeah. So once you've got that, we spoke a little bit earlier about like sometimes in those situations, it's going to come down to what the outcome is and what you're willing to do for the outcome. Now, where people trip up with this is they have shit, shallow-ass goals that mean nothing to them, that rely on motivation, and they wonder why they're not getting results.
Yeah.
And like your last first time.
Yeah.
It's like just actually, this is the time that I'm actually going to get it right. It's going to come from having a real reason to show up. You're not going to go through these growth and ownership mindset reviews constantly and allow yourself to level up if you don't actually have a decent reason to do it.
Yeah.
There's not some kind of passion behind it. And that's when we start talking about, well, what are your core values? So we typically, with the core value stuff, what you're looking at there, it's like people will start to talk about like, I don't know, like I value family and all that sort of stuff. It's not really that. What we're looking for is like, what are 5 things in your life that you need to express to feel your best? So off the top of my head, I should be able to recite mine because that's part of the program. I think I have contribution, growth and learning, work ethic, integrity, and love.
Yeah.
So 4 of them all connect to my training.
Yeah.
Because I don't train with Amy because she coaches with you for a reason. So 4 of them are all directly correlated to both my career and training. So if you are so there's a list of like 25 or something. You can just Google like core values and they'll come up. If you can look at, okay, what are the main 5? What we also encourage people to do is look at another 5 that are important to you that you're not expressing. So that might be, say if you are you're new to this growth and ownership stuff and you're not very good at it, maybe integrity is important to you, but you're not, if you're honest with yourself, you're not hitting it. Yeah. You said you were going to train 4 days this week and you didn't. You said you were going to hit your macros and you didn't. You said. It's like, that is not holding integrity with yourself. Yeah. So that might be one that's in that next 5, like, I need to work on that to make myself feel better at the end of the day and have that level of fulfillment. So why this is also important, if I don't want to train, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm going to do it anyway. Particularly because like obviously work ethic is one that makes it maybe, I don't know if it's easier, but it's like, because I value work ethic, there's a little bit of an enjoyment of the grind a little bit.
Yeah.
As much as I hate that word, but like, it's like I don't want to train, but I'm going to grit my teeth and get it done anyway because I like it.
Yeah.
Like I like that feeling of doing something hard because...
It doesn't even need to be work ethic though. Like it can be being driven or like discipline or whatever. Like you're going to be able to find something within you that allows you to express that through a value that you can then behave in that way. Like the way I sort of look at values is just like a framework for how you need to behave. And something that comes up so much with clients and even like people that we talk to on social media is like guilt or whatever when something goes wrong or when they do something they know they shouldn't be doing. And it's like, at the end of the day, if you've behaved out of alignment with those values, it will feel shit. Yeah. Like you will feel guilty. You will feel bad. And it's not like I'm a shit person. Like I fucked up my macros or I didn't train this week and I'm never going to like, poor me, I'm a victim. It's just like, fuck, I didn't behave how I want to behave.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do next time? And if you just view it from like a framework that guides your actions and your daily like habits, then it just streamlines what needs to happen and you can reassess when things don't go to plan without all of this like emotional bullshit where you sort of like tear your hair out and make yourself feel like a crappy person because of it.
Yeah. And it's so important to identify your values before you set your goals for that reason.
Yeah.
Because why you set your goals should be based off those core values.
Yeah.
So for example, say you want to like do a novice powerlifting meet, hashtag STCfit. Say you want to do that, right? If growth and learning is a value that you've identified, you all of a sudden, that tells me you're a curious person. So I put a post up a while ago, like instead of focusing on outcomes, set outcome-based goals, but be curious of what you can achieve. So I'm going to do a 16-week prep to see how strong I can get in 4 months because I'm just curious to see what I can do.
Yeah.
One of my girls at the moment is doing exactly that with our photo shoot. She's like, I've never really dieted before. I'm just curious to see what it's like.
Yeah.
And her adherence is insane.
Because there's no like expectation.
Yeah, because it's not like I want to look hot so I can post my ass somewhere.
Yeah.
It's I'm curious about what I can do so I can do this. So it's identifying what in that list matters. So like, what are your 5?
Yeah, mine, work ethic, contribution, fun, integrity, and drive. Yeah. I think, yeah.
So fun is in my other 5.
Yeah. I know, I had 10 and then I was like, fuck, I could condense this down to 5 now.
Yeah, that is my need to express more. And it's funny how similar
I was laughing when you read yours out. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Spending too much time together.
So let's say, for example, right, your main connection to training is an expression of fun.
Yeah.
If you don't like lifting heavy,
you're not going to do it.
Why would you then say, I want to deadlift 200 kilos or whatever? Like, I'm going to get a 3 times body weight deadlift. Like, yeah, that's cool. How are you expressing fun within that? And what does fun mean to you?
Yeah, I think even that though, like, there's also a bit of a hierarchy as well, because it's like that might not express fun, but it might express drive. Definitely. And it's like, well, where does drive sit in that hierarchy? And would I rather persist through something that maybe I don't find that enjoyable, but I really get something out of pushing through that comfort zone and what's more important. So,
and what value are you choosing to express through your training?
Yeah.
Or values?
Yeah.
So if you were to say like, no, I need training to be fun because I don't have enough fun in my life.
Yeah.
Then maybe like a super rigid, structured plan isn't the, like, if I had someone come to me like that, it's like, what do you like doing?
Yeah.
We'll still set tangible outcomes, but let's have fun getting there. Yeah. I fucking hate back squatting. Cool, use a safety bar. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can create an environment this is enjoyable and still get a tangible outcome where you look and feel look better naked, you're stronger, feel better, all of that, and tick other boxes. I actually had a woman message me during the week who was like, hey, I'm just like, my gym's closed, I'm moving, we've chatted about coaching and stuff in the past. She was like, where do you do coaching out of? I was at a CrossFit gym, I'm going to look at another CrossFit gym. And I'm like, all right, just so we're clear, like my stuff is structured, 6 to 8 week blocks on a program, very tangible, like measured every week, outcome-based training. That's what I'm good at and that's what I do. If you want to go do WODs, I'm not in.
For you. Yeah.
Like, I know you're going to look at another gym, just work with one of the coaches there.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing face-to-face to like run around for an hour and kind of huff and puff. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important if that person, for example, was to come to me and be like, oh yeah, I really want to deadlift. Like the strongest I can possibly be in the squat, bench and dead. It's like, okay, here's what's required.
Yeah.
6 weeks in, she's like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I hate this. I want to be able to like have fun with friends and shit when I train. It's like, this isn't it.
Yeah, your interpretation of those words, and that's why when we get our guys to do this, like in Be Bulletproof, it's like, what is your interpretation of all of these values? Because like for me, for example, like doing a powerlifting meet and like running myself into the ground and like peaking and feeling like shit, like that's my fucked up version of fun.
Yeah.
That's not going to be someone else's version of fun, whose might be hanging out with their friends and you know, going out on the weekend. Like I'm willing to put that aside because my interpretation of that is different to the next person. So again, like being able to just clarify with yourself what that actually looks like for you without being distorted by everyone else's interpretation as well is really important.
I'm just laughing. Obviously, I put wraps on for the first time in like 18 months last night. And if you haven't had wraps before, they fucking hurt.
I will never.
There's
not be doing that.
Anyone who tells you that it's like the tattoo thing, it's like, no, tattoos don't hurt. It's like, they do. They fucking hurt. And wraps hurt. So like, was wrapping myself last night, squatted. It was like 5:30 at night. The feels like temperature was 5. We're in the garage, like gritty hip hop on. And I was like, I looked down, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. This is the best. Yeah. It's like if anyone else looks at that, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? So yeah, definitely what do those things mean to you is super important. So I guess bringing it all back, find the top 5 values that you find important to you that you're expressing right now, but you'd like to push further. Find the top 5 values that are important to you that maybe you're not either in alignment with or have a way of expressing them. Then identify which ones you want and can express through training. Yeah.
Not even training. Like I think everything that encompasses the lifestyle that you live when you're working towards something that is results-based, like outcome-driven. Yeah. Because like that's going to dictate not only what you do in the gym, but how you conduct yourself at work, on the weekends, when you go to bed. Like it's going to change everything. So
we do this exact same approach in the Standout PT program as well, where we actually do business goals, training goals, personal goals. And those same 5 values or same 10 values need to be expressed somewhere in all of them. Yeah. Because they overlap too. And I would almost even just like for a gym goer, consider that. Yeah. Because it's like if your personal goals are to go away for 3 days every fortnight, but you want to also do a powerlifting prep or a bodybuilding prep.
Yeah, they've got to intertwine.
Do they work together? Yeah. And I want to achieve X in my career, which means I need to work 60 hours a week. How does that play into the outcomes and what does that mean you're going to need to do? And just make sure all of those, firstly, are actually in line with your values, or you're going to end up, the word that I hate, but you're going to end up burnt out because you're uninspired and you're not fulfilled. Yeah. 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 So once you've got values, I feel like we've sort of established that. How do you go about setting goals with clients?
Yeah. So before we go into this, you guys can do this for yourselves on our goal setting guide. So it'll take you through the process of like identifying what your values are and making sure that your goals are really clear and specific. So if you're listening to this, you can actually do this side by side and it'll be really helpful. But I guess in terms of being able to set goals, the first problem that we see is that they're not clear and specific enough, or they're not like outcome based. And we've been having a lot of conversations with like not only our clients but like the coaches within our team as well about how we can go about identifying really clear specific goals that actually have, you know, like a deadline and an outcome. And everyone talks about, you know, the smart goals, but if we're not setting them and if we're not really intentional and specific, that's where we just find ourselves like spinning our wheels and we don't really know whether we're coming or going or starting or ending, or like where the finish line is, and where we start to set that next goal to then build upon that.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of doing that, it's like we need to have a look at, you know, what our values are, and then from there set those goals that you're working towards based on what you've deemed really important to you. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of people are sitting there with, I want to lose 5 kilos, or, you know, I just want to look good in summer, or just really broad goals that aren't really attached to a meaning.
Yeah.
So I think getting super specific and understanding that like a lot of people don't want to do that because you could get caught out because you failed. Because if you've got something to compare it up to, then you could potentially fail. It's like, well, I don't want to set a weight loss goal because what if I don't reach it?
Yeah.
So just getting really clear and specific with what those deadlines are for yourself, and setting a time frame for them, and making sure that you've got processes in place to be able to tick those off as you go along.
Yeah, I've even moved away from, I think the SMART goals thing is solid. I've started just terming it as pass or fail. I've
used this exact same thing with habits and goals. It's like you either did it or you didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's like you don't dance around and it falls back into the blame and whatever. It's like, oh, I didn't do it because blah, blah, blah. It's just like, did you do it or did you not do it? Like,
yeah, and that applies for us everywhere. Like this is how we run our business. It's how we run our goals in our training. It's everything. Like we just had our quarterly reviews, and it was like, did you pass or did you fail? And then we set new goals, and there's either going to be a green box or a red box at the end of the quarter, regardless of what happens in between that time.
Yeah.
So I think having the balls, for lack of a better term, to commit to something you might fail at and getting comfortable with failure as the opportunity to learn and be better. And look, it could mean that you set a goal that was too far, or it could mean you didn't do what you're supposed to do. And that's why it's so important why we talk about growth and ownership first. It's like you need to be able to look at that with a growth and ownership mindset. Growth to allow you to set big enough goals. Ownership to be able to reflect on truly why you didn't reach them.
Yeah.
And I think one of the examples you used there was like, and these are the types of goals that we get across the board. It's like, I want to look good for summer.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that mean?
Yeah. What I always say in a consult is like, okay, that means something very different to me than what it does to you. So is that like 10 centimeters off your waist or 5 centimeters? Or do you want to do that in the next 6 months, or like, you know, in the next 8 weeks? Like, what does that look like?
Even it's just so open to like perception too. Like knowing what I'm like when I go into a like physique focused mindset.
Yeah, I'm like, are we getting fucking shredded? Or?
Yes, but it's like what I see in the mirror every day is fucking different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that right now. Some days I'm like, I look fucking jacked. Other days I'm like, you're a fat powerlifter.
Yeah.
Sort your life out. So it's, well, what does looking good mean? Because I know I've done photo shoots in the past. There's a photo shoot we did before your time, maybe 4 years ago. It was like, I was in the best shape I've ever been in, but didn't have bottom abs, and I refused to take my singlet off.
Really?
I look back at it now and I'm like, that is literally the best shape I've ever been in. And up until that point, it was like probably, and my mindset's starting to shift now, but like probably the best shape I'll ever be in. But perceptually, well, now that's what I said, it's changing.
You and I both, here we go.
Yeah, it's like, well, now I look back at that and go, well, fuck, I looked unreal. So what the fuck does look good for summer mean? Yeah. And that's where you get to like, you get to November and you look in the mirror and you're like, well, that's not good enough. And that was your goal. So how do you measure the pass fail? Like you said, it's got to be a measurement. It's got to be a process. It's got to be a performance outcome. It's got to be something tangible that you can say, I did that.
I think the really important thing as well on top of that is avoiding that like short-term vision for yourself as well. So it's like, okay, I want to achieve this in the next 6 months, but we're always thinking at least 6 months ahead of that as well, if not a year. Like, I know as soon as we started finishing off like prep for the last comp, I was like, all right, so I know that nationals is happening after that, and after that I think I really want to diet and get into more, you know, body comp stuff and take some time off, pal. And it's always constantly thinking about what's happening after the next goal that you've ticked off, which is something that we reiterate with our clients all the time. And they'll see it mapped out on the top of their like check-in process, where it's like, oh, the next block of time is this, and then after that we're going to do this, and after that we're going to do this. So we're not actually relying on feeling motivated. It's just like we see the bigger picture, like we see what we're working towards.
And that comes from expressing your values in your training.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, it's like, I just want to lose 5 kilos. And then you lose the 5 kilos and you stop training, you put the 5 kilos back on. It's like, I just want to lose 5 kilos. So then you lose it and you put it back on. It's like you're in this constant ebb and flow of going backwards, going forwards, versus I want to express XYZ goal or value. That's constant. It doesn't just stop. It's like, I'm doing this because it fulfills me, and at the end of the week I feel fucking awesome about myself because I did it. So you don't stop at the 5 kilos. Like, maybe I can be, if it's growth and learning, it's like that curious thing. If it's work ethic, it's like, what's a hard thing that I could do that I can challenge myself with? If it's, I don't know, I can't think of any of the other ones off the top of my head. Or like I mentioned, love was in the top of mine. It's like, well, what could I do that would involve both training and something maybe I could do with my partner? Like these sort of like things that work with your values that just naturally occur into the next thing. Yeah.
I think, like, not to get too like soft and shit, but like it's never really about the outcome. And we say like the outcome is important to have, but it's not really about the 100 kilo deadlift, or it's not really about the 5 kilo weight loss. Like, it's about who you're being as a reflection of that.
Yeah.
That'll predicate whether or not you actually achieve that result, because that result is meaningless if it doesn't reflect all of that stuff first.
Yeah.
Which is where everyone goes wrong, and where you just end up cycling like on and off, start again, stop again, like, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, I think I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'll probably butcher it. But is it Tom Bailu? Is that how you say his last name? Tam? Close enough. Anyway, shout out Tom, who has like a bazillion followers. I don't know how to say his last name. But anyway, so he posted, if you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years,
or who
you're going to be in 5 years, who you are right now is that.
Yeah.
So if you don't know exactly what you want to, who you want to be, what you want to be doing 5 years from now, then you're going to stay exactly where you are. So if think about that and expand it, there's so many layers to that. So it's like, you might be only gaining 2 kilos a year, which I think is like statistically, most people gain, I think the American stats are 4 pounds, so 2 kilos a year, most of it over the holiday season from drinking and food.
Yeah.
So if you do that every year for 5 years, you've put on 10 kilos. So that it's not just like I stay in exactly the same spot.
Yeah.
You continue through the exact same habits and you stay the same person, which gets the same outcomes. 2 kilos doesn't sound that bad. Being the same person and putting on 10, most people start to go, well, fuck, I don't want that.
Yeah. That reminds me of the question that you guys put in the standout PT thing, where it's like, think about everything that you want, and now think about what you don't want and what will happen if you don't do that. And for me, like personally, that was a bigger wake up call, or like more inspiring or like motivational than thinking about what I actually wanted. Because I was like, I want to not be like that more than I want that.
Yeah.
If like that makes sense. Like,
yeah, that's actually from Jordan Peterson's Future Authoring program. And that program's like fucking 15 hours. And you have to write, I think it's 3 hours that you need to sit down and write, if I continue to behave the way that I am for the rest of my life, what happens?
Yeah, like for me, that's just a fucking, that's not on. Like if you're doing things that you're not happy with right now, again, rather than like future projecting like who you want to be and who you want to turn into, it's like, okay,
because that's easy, right?
Yeah, totally. Because you're just making up this like ideal vision of yourself in your head, which you can do in your imagination.
And we've been setting goals since we were like 6.
Yeah.
And there was no, other than how we felt, there's often no repercussions for not hitting them.
Right. And then it's like, well, this is my current reality. And if my current reality doesn't change, then what? And that's like fucking not happening. So that's like the biggest wake up call. Like, I think if there's anything that you're not happy with or things that are self-destructive, like sit with that, like ask yourself that, and that'll be enough to make you want to change that real quick.
Yeah. So actionable steps, like go to stcfit.com/goals. That'll give you the walkthrough of this stuff to setting them. But action stuff for the people that are just listening, I would recommend starting from 12 months working backwards with training. If you're newer to this, if you're a couple of years into your training plus, I'd actually go 3 years and reverse engineer from there, depending on where you're at right now. So that would be no, it wouldn't. I was going to say that would be a challenge, but it's not. Just because my goals are changing at the end of nationals, I still know roughly what I want to be doing 3 years from now. From a training standpoint, I know what outcomes I want. Because I still want that 300 kilo deadlift. Motherfucker.
It's not changing.
So I will be back. But yeah, so if you've been training for a while, 3 years work back. So do 3 years, 12 months, 6 months, 3 months. If you're newer to this stuff, start at 12, 6, and 3. And then start progressing your way through making sure that they are value aligned. So when you write your goals, they must be pass fail. So you need to be able to measure them. And then you must be able to write down what value they fulfill for you and how. If you have all of that, #be bulletproof, you've got a mindset that you can recognize when you're setting limiting beliefs for yourself and you're deflecting responsibility and taking away, if we're getting super hippie now, but taking away your own power so you can change that. Then you've got goals that actually mean something to you, so you don't have to worry about motivation ever again. Like you're pretty much set.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to that is once you've gone through that process, I think a really cool thing to do, I'm not sure if we go through it on the goal setting worksheet or not. I know we do it in Be Bulletproof, but go through and list like the next 50 things that you'll need to change.
Yeah.
So like once you've got all of that in place, you need to have a look at like where the gaps are and what you need to start like working towards. So it's like, what do I need to do differently to be able to get from A to B? Yeah. And that's where you'll actually start to change your daily habits and your week, and your past fails will change, and that'll all turn into just your daily behaviors, which will facilitate an outcome.
Yeah, so that's where we start to open up the be, do, have door. It's like, who do I need to be? So for example, I just mentioned the 300 kilo deadlift. It's been on my list since I started powerlifting. Who do I need to be to deadlift 300 kilos?
Someone who does their rehab at night and not watching it.
Someone
Netflix.
who... So then I look back at my prep, for example, and I go, I wasn't being that person. So how do I do it? Well, I need to change these behaviors, these thought patterns, and be this person. So like Nat said, 50. If you're new, start with 10. Yeah. Once you get 10, you'll get 25. Once you get 25, you'll have a run on and you'll get 50. You might have to do it over 3 or 4 sittings, but it's so valuable because like, it's fucking 300 kilos. It's not, and I know like if you're newer to the gym and whatever, like 300 kilos sounds like a lot. Anthony Krusner rocked up at the weekend just as a fucking training day and pulled like 380. Yeah. It's like in the circles I hang out with, 300 is like not a thing. But for me, it was like, well, I started at 160. Who do I have to be to achieve that outcome? And when we talked about like Tom's thing with the 5 years, I wanted to be, and I still do, the person who can do that. Yeah. The discipline that's involved, the understanding of training that's involved, the extra time outside of the gym that's involved, the overcoming injuries and challenges that's involved. Being able to manage personal life, career, and training to turn that dial up when I need to be able to achieve that outcome. To being confident to walk on a platform and do it in front of people, not just in the garage. Like all of those things, and that took me 10 seconds without it written down on a piece of paper in front of me. That means something now. It's not an arbitrary number that like 100 kilo body weight, 300 kilo deadlift would be pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fucking hollow. You're not...
Yeah.
The days you don't want to train and that extra set you don't want to do and the rehab you don't want to do is not coming from what looks like a good number on paper. That's
exactly what I said before. And I'm like, it's not the deadlift. Like, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
That's not why you're showing up and you can't be fucked and when you've had a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
And when you identify that is when you move away from, you rely on motivation because your goals are shit. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you guys are listening and you want to get a really good picture of how to do this for yourself, go to the goal setting guide. We've got the resource there for you to go through. If this is something that sparks your interest and you want to be in a position where you can set yourself up for this long term and have the systems in place, then head to the STCfit website where you can apply for Be Bulletproof. So module 1 and 2. Yeah. Week 1 and week 2 will be growth and ownership and values and goals. And we'll take you through a really comprehensive process of being able to identify all of this for yourself on a personal level and also have other people call you out on stuff as well, which I think is really important, especially if you're someone who is super independent and you want to be able to do this for yourself. You don't necessarily want to work side by side with a coach. Having a mentor there to be able to pull you up on your bullshit, because we all have it, is really important. And if you value growth and ownership, then you're going to value that process as well. Yeah,
100%. And if you're, like you said, that independent person who wants to figure this out on themselves, definitely Be Bulletproof. We also, all of our coaches go through this process with every client that comes through the door.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting someone to be directly accountable to, check out the coaching stuff as well. Either of those two options, this is the foundation of everything else that you do. Like we're going to do more technical episodes as we move forwards. Like Nat and I are going to get in and talk about like assessing movement and selecting exercises and all that kind of shit. Like the sexy stuff that you guys want to hear. If you don't have any of this and you don't fucking show up to the gym, it doesn't matter whether you put a safety bar squat in or a split squat. Like you fucking weren't there.
Yeah.
So you need to have this shit first, and you need to be consistent with everything that you're doing. That's going to come from this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's definitely like the foundation block that if you don't have it, everything else will fall apart. So if you guys found this episode valuable, or you've gone to the resource and you've gone through it yourself, we would love to hear about it as well. So screenshot the episode, post it up on your stories, tag at STCfit, at Nat Jurek STCfit. What's your handle?
At Ben Scott STC.
And what's Chase's?
At Jason_STC.
I feel like I should know this by now.
I do that one a lot.
Yeah.
Because I usually do this part on the learning.
I need practice.
Any PTs out there, if you want to go listen to me and Jace talk about coaching, business, etc., jump on the STCfit Learning. Listen to that podcast as well if you're not sick of me talking already.
Yep.
I had a big coffee before we started.
Yeah, I didn't. I made it through. And then, so like we said, next couple of weeks we'll be going through programming fundamentals, training, and nutrition.
Yep.
Yeah, so now we've got all the fun stuff. But you're not allowed to do that if you haven't done this first.
Yeah, we've done the boring stuff like sleep and lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's like not that sexy, but very important. Mindset, everyone thought we were going to be woo-woo, and we told you just to...
Suck it up.
Yeah. Go and have a Nat's term ego death, or I would just call it pull your head out of your ass. And go and get the job done. And now we get to talk about how.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks for one of those topics. So we'll see you guys next fortnight.
See you guys. Thanks for listening.